Hello, everyone. It's Dr. P. This lecture is about Chapter 5, and Chapter 5 is leadership and followership in our text. And before I dive into that, I want to talk about some of the supplemental material that's posted for this week's lesson plan. There are two videos I'd like you to watch. The first one deals with everyday leadership, and it's a TED Talk by Drew Dudley. And he talks about leadership isn't this super special thing that people do, and there are examples of everyday leadership, and he shares one in his life. The second video is by someone named Simon Sinek. I don't know if you've heard of Simon Sinek. He's one of my favorite lecturers, authors, gurus on leadership. And his TED Talk is entitled How Great Leaders Inspire Action. And he talks about this thing called the Golden Circle. And I really hope you enjoy that video. It's one of my favorites. And it talks about organizations and the what they do, the how they do, but more importantly, the why they do it. And that's why people buy from you as a person or buy from you as an organization, when they find out the why of things that you do. Lastly, there's an article by Jim Collins dealing with level 5 leadership. And we come on to that in the text in chapter 5. I think it's on page 175. It mentions Jim Collins' book, Good to Great, and level 5 leadership. So I'd like you to have a read on that too. It talks about the importance of humility in leadership and not being egocentric and caring about your own self, but caring about other people. This is in my mind, one of the most important chapters in the book, and it's one of my favorites because I've aspired to be a leader my whole career. And like this Drew Dudley says, when you ask people, do you feel you're a leader? How many people in a room would raise their hand? I'm not so sure that I've ever felt comfortable with people saying that I've been a leader, even though, I had 500 and some people at one point in time working for me. So the text, and I just want to hit some of the highlights of the text. The first thing it talks about is leadership, and it gives a definition: the process of influencing the opinions, attitudes, and behaviors of others toward the achievement of a goal. I think that's a great definition. It talks about influence, and it talks about aspiring people to achieve a goal. And after all, isn't that we all do as leaders or supervisors or managers? We try and get people to do things. So I think that's a good definition. It also talks about leadership can be developed. There's that age-old question: is leadership? Are you born with leadership capabilities and qualities, or do you learn them? And certainly there's a mixture of both. But I think the text does a nice job in saying that leadership can be developed. We can be put into situations where we can grow, our skills about planning, organizing, and communicating and controlling and leading, which are all the functions of a manager and leader. But some things like empathy and humility, I think some of that is born into us and nurtured and developed by the people who raised us, ideally our parents or other adults in our lives that taught us what it means to be humble and empathetic. So I think there's a little bit of both, but clearly leadership skills can be developed. Then the book talks about some contemporary thoughts on leadership, and one of the ones I want to talk a little bit about is this servant leadership. This idea that the function of a leader is to serve the people in the organization. Now, we've all seen an organizational pyramid, right, where the workers are at the bottom, and then you have team leaders and supervisors and middle managers and top managers at the top. Well, this idea of servant leadership says we need to flip that pyramid. And then at the top of the pyramid are our employees, or people who work there. And all the way at the bottom of the pyramid is the CEO and the leadership team. And their job is to serve the multitude of people who are the employees for an organization. And when I think about that concept, it's very motivating to me, and it speaks to me that that's the role of someone who leads an organization, is to care for and nurture the people in the organization. The text goes on to talk about leadership style depending on many factors, and one of the factors, of course, is trust. And how do you build trust, as a leader in an organization or a manager? And I think it's the same as how we build trust in a relationship, right? You do what you say you're going to do. You keep your word. You keep commitments. You do those things that engender a trust from the other party. Well, it's the same thing as being a leader in an organization. Walk the talk. Do what you're going to say. Care for other people. Treat people with respect. Follow the golden rule. Treat others like you'd want to be treated. All that builds trust in a professional working relationship between a leader and the followers. Another key factor is ethics. And ethics, of course, is the system of moral principles that guide the conduct of an individual, group, or society. So basically, how you behave. What are your morals? Are you an ethical leader or manager? And again, together with trust, I think ethics are very important in a leadership situation. It talks about being ethical requires walking the talk. We all know what that means, right? It's I say I'm going to do something and I do it. That's walking the talk. Or in the case of a manager, it's like I'm telling you to do these things and follow these rules, and I'm going to follow them as well. That's another example of walking the talk. And we've all worked for people who have done that, and then we've probably worked for people who haven't done that. One of the things I always tell my students, in my experience, I've learned more about being a good manager from working for poor managers. Sometimes it's not always the good manager to teach us things. So I think I'm going to stop the first part of this lecture here, because I don't want the video to be that large, and then we'll pick it up with part 2.